watcher in the window. Eric and his wife Lisa had always dreamed of living in the countryside, away from the noise and chaos of the city. So when they found a charming old farmhouse nestled on a quiet road surrounded by woods, it seemed perfect. The house was beautiful, if a bit worn, with large windows that overlooked a serene field. It was everything they had hoped for. The first few weeks were peaceful. They spent their days fixing up the house, enjoying the fresh air, and getting to know their new quiet life. But as the days grew shorter and the nights darker, Eric began to notice something odd. Every evening, just after sunset, he'd feel a prickling sensation on the back of his neck, as though he were being watched. At first, he dismissed it as paranoia, just getting used to the isolation, but the feeling persisted. Whenever he looked out the large window facing the field, he felt certain that someone was standing there, just beyond the edge of the woods. One night, unable to shake the sensation, Eric stood by the window, staring into the dark expanse of the field. The moon was full, casting long shadows across the grass. For a long time, there was nothing. But just as he was about to turn away, he saw it. A figure, standing far out in the field, motionless. It was too distant to make out clearly, but it was tall and human-like. "Lisa," he called out. His voice was uneasy. "Come look at this." Lisa came to the window, squinting into the distance. "I don't see anything. Eric, are you sure?" Eric blinked, and the figure was gone. The field was empty. He tried to laugh it off, convincing himself it was just a trick of the light, but the uneasy feeling lingered. Over the next few nights, the figure returned. It would appear at dusk, standing a little closer each time, always watching. Eric began dreading sunset, unable to shake the feeling that the figure was coming for them. He stopped mentioning it to Lisa, not wanting to scare her, but the lack of sleep and consistent anxiety were wearing on him. One evening, as they were having dinner, Lisa glanced out the window and froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. "Eric," she whispered, "there's someone out there." He looked up, his stomach dropping. The figure was closer now, standing just at the edge of the yard, barely visible in the fading light. It was tall, impossibly tall, with elongated limbs and a featureless face, just a dark shape staring at them. They both ran to the door, but when they flung it open, the yard was empty. No footprints in the soft ground, no rustling in the trees, nothing. The next night, the figure was even closer, standing just outside the window, its long fingers nearly brushing the glass. Eric felt a cold sweat break out across his body as he stared into the thing's blank face. He knew, without knowing how, that it was waiting, watching. That night, Eric woke with a start. The room was cold, the kind of chill that cuts through your bones. He glanced at the clock, 3:12 a.m. Something felt wrong, and then he heard it, a soft tap, tap, tap. Eric's breath caught in his throat. The sound was coming from the window. Slowly, he turned his head. There on the other side of the glass was the figure. It was closer than ever, pressed against the window, its head tilted unnaturally, as though it was studying him. Its hand was resting on the glass, fingers tapping rhythmically. For a moment, Eric couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He stared at the thing in horrified disbelief, his heart pounding in his ears. Then, with a sudden burst of terror, he grabbed Lisa's arm, shaking her awake. "Lisa, wake up. It's here." Lisa opened her eyes groggily, but before she could ask what was happening, a loud crack echoed through the room. The window shattered, glass spraying across the room. The figure was gone, but the cold air rushed in, biting at their skin. Panicking, they fled the house, jumped into their car, and driving through the night without looking back. They never returned to the farmhouse. When they called the police the next morning, no one believed their stories. The officers found nothing unusual, no signs of forced entry, only the shattered window. But Eric knew what he had seen. and so did Lisa. And sometimes, late at night, when he's alone, Eric can still hear it. The soft tap, 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 just outside the window. Always watching, always waiting.